A quiet afternoon changes everything. The afternoon sun casts long shadows through the windows of Corner Comfort Cafe, a small establishment tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on a busy street in Boston. Penelope Hayes wiped down the marble counter with practiced ease, her auburn hair tied back in a messy bun, a few loose strands framing her freckled face. At 29, she had poured her entire heart into this cafe, transforming it from a rundown space to a warm haven where neighbors gathered and strangers became friends. The cafe was quiet today, with only 2 customers lingering over their afternoon coffee. Rita, a retired teacher who came in every Thursday, sat by the window reading a mystery novel. A young man in a business suit typed frantically on his laptop in the corner. Penelope hummed softly as she restocked the pastry display, arranging fresh blueberry muffins and chocolate croissants with care. The bell above the door chimed, and Penelope looked up with her usual welcoming smile. Her expression immediately shifted to concern when she saw the elderly woman who had just entered. The woman was impeccably dressed in a lavender suit with pearl earrings, but her eyes held a confusion that made Penelope's heart ache. She clutched her designer handbag tightly, her hands trembling slightly as she looked around the cafe with obvious distress. When strangers become family, Penelope quickly set down the tray she was holding and walked around the counter. Something in the woman's expression reminded her of her own grandmother, who had passed away 3 years ago. Without hesitation, she approached the elderly lady with a gentle smile. "Hello, are you all right?" Penelope asked softly. Noticing how the woman's perfectly styled silver hair contrasted with the worry etched across her face, the woman turned to her, and Penelope could see tears forming in her blue eyes. "I think I'm lost, dear. I was with a tour group visiting the historic sites, and I stopped to look at some flowers at a shop. When I turned around, everyone was gone. I've been walking for almost an hour, and I can't find my hotel." Penelope felt her chest tighten with empathy. She gently took the woman's arm and guided her to the most comfortable chair in the cafe, the overstuffed armchair near the fireplace that she usually reserved for her favorite customers. "Please, sit down here. You're safe now. My name is Penelope, and this is my cafe. Let me get you something warm to drink, and we'll figure this out together," she said. Her voice soothing and calm, the elderly woman sank into the chair with visible relief. "Thank you so much. I'm Dorothy Whitmore. I feel so foolish getting lost like this. My grandson is always worried about me traveling alone, but I insisted I could handle a simple tour." Penelope smiled warmly as she prepared a cup of chamomile tea, adding a touch of honey just as her grandmother used to like it. She brought it over, along with a small plate of butter cookies, placing them on the side table next to Dorothy. "Not foolish at all, Dorothy. Cities can be confusing, especially when you're visiting. The important thing is that you're here now, and we're going to make sure you get back to where you need to be," Penelope assured her. Stories shared over tea as Dorothy sipped her tea, color began returning to her cheeks. Penelope pulled up a chair and sat across from her, listening intently as the older woman began to talk. There was something about Penelope's genuine interest that made people open up to her, a quality that had made her cafe a beloved gathering place in the neighborhood. Dorothy told her about her life in New York, about her late husband who had been a professor of literature, about her love of gardening and classical music. She spoke with particular warmth about her grandson Benjamin, who had built a successful business empire, but who still called her every single day without fail. "He's a good boy. My Benjamin," Dorothy said, her eyes softening. "So successful and accomplished, but sometimes I worry he works too hard. He's so focused on his business that he forgets to live. I keep telling him that money and success mean nothing if you don't have someone to share it with." Penelope found herself nodding. She understood that sentiment all too well. After losing both her parents in a car accident 5 years ago, she had learned that the most precious things in life were moments of connection and love, not material possessions. "Your grandson is lucky to have you looking out for him," Penelope said sincerely. "And it sounds like he's lucky to have had such a strong role model. Not everyone values family the way you clearly do." Dorothy reached across and patted Penelope's hand. "You remind me of myself when I was younger, dear. You have a kind heart. I can tell just by the way you care for this place and the way you cared for a stranger like me." The search begins after they had talked for nearly an hour. Penelope gently brought up the practical matter of finding Dorothy's tour group and hotel. Dorothy fumbled in her handbag and pulled out a crumpled brochure from the tour company. Penelope immediately called the number listed and spoke with a frantic tour guide who had been searching everywhere for Dorothy. "Oh, thank goodness." The tour guide exclaimed, "We've been looking for Mrs. Whitmore for 2 hours. I've already contacted her emergency contact. Her grandson is on his way to Boston right now. Can you please keep her there until he arrives?" Penelope assured the tour guide that Dorothy would be perfectly safe and comfortable at the cafe. After hanging up, she relayed the information to Dorothy, who looked both relieved and slightly embarrassed. "My grandson is flying here from New York," Dorothy said, shaking her head. "He's going to be so worried. He had important meetings today, and now he's dropping everything for me." "It's because he loves you," Penelope said simply. "Anyone can see that family is the most important thing." While they waited, Penelope closed the cafe early and made sure Dorothy was comfortable. She prepared a light meal of soup and fresh bread, refusing to let Dorothy pay for anything. Rita, who had been observing the situation from her corner, came over to chat with Dorothy, and soon the three women were engaged in a lively conversation about books and travel. The arrival that changes. Everything nearly 3 hours later, Penelope heard the distinct sound of an expensive car pulling up outside. She glanced through the window and saw a sleek black vehicle with tinted windows. A moment later, the cafe door burst open, and a man strode in with such commanding presence that everyone in the room fell silent. Benjamin Whitmore was tall and broad-shouldered, his athletic frame evident even beneath his perfectly tailored navy suit. His dark brown hair was slightly disheveled, as if he had been running his hands through it repeatedly during the journey. His jaw was strong and defined, and his hazel eyes scanned the room with intense focus until they landed on his grandmother. "Grandma Dorothy," he exclaimed, rushing over to her with a speed that contradicted his otherwise controlled demeanor. Dorothy stood up, smiling radiantly. "Benjamin, my dear boy, I'm perfectly fine, as you can see. This wonderful young lady took care of me." Benjamin turned his attention to Penelope, and she felt her breath catch slightly. Up close, she could see the mixture of relief, worry, and exhaustion in his eyes. He was undeniably handsome, but it was the vulnerability she glimpsed beneath his polished exterior that truly captured her attention. "You must be Penelope," Benjamin said, his deep voice washing over her. "I can't thank you enough for taking care of my grandmother. When I got the call that she was missing, I was terrified." Penelope felt herself blushing under his intense gaze. Anyone would have done the same. "Dorothy is a lovely person, and I was happy to help." Benjamin shook his head firmly. "No, not anyone would have done what you did. Most people would have just pointed her toward the nearest police station. You welcomed her into your home, fed her, comforted her, and refused payment. That's extraordinary." First impressions that last forever as Benjamin helped his grandmother gather her things. Penelope noticed how gentle he was with Dorothy, how he checked to make sure she was truly all right, how his entire body seemed to relax now that he knew she was safe. There was a tenderness in his actions that contrasted sharply with his powerful, authoritative appearance. "Penelope, dear," Dorothy said, as they prepared to leave, "could I have your phone number? I would love to stay in touch. I feel like we've started a real friendship today." Penelope smiled warmly and wrote her number on a napkin, handing it to Dorothy. As she did, she caught Benjamin watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. There was curiosity there, certainly, but also something deeper that made her heart beat a little faster. "Thank you again," Benjamin said, extending his hand to shake hers. When their hands touched, Penelope felt an unexpected jolt of electricity pass between them. From the slight widening of Benjamin's eyes, she suspected he had felt it too. As they walked toward the door, Dorothy turned back one more time. "Benjamin, don't you think this cafe has the most wonderful atmosphere? And Penelope makes the most delicious tea I've ever tasted." Benjamin glanced around the cafe, taking in the cozy furniture, the warm lighting, the carefully chosen decor that made the space feel like home. His eyes returned to Penelope, and a small smile played at the corners of his mouth. "It's perfect," he said. Though Penelope had the distinct feeling he wasn't just talking about the cafe. After they left, Penelope stood by the window, watching as Benjamin helped his grandmother into the car with utmost care. Just before getting in himself, he looked back at the cafe. Their eyes met through the window, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Then he was gone, leaving Penelope with a strange fluttering sensation in her chest, and the feeling that her quiet, predictable life was about to become much more complicated. Rita came up beside her, a knowing smile on her face. "Well, that was quite an afternoon." Penelope nodded, still staring at the spot where the car had been. "Yes, it certainly was." What Penelope didn't know was that at that very moment, in the back of his car, Benjamin was asking his grandmother every question he could think of about the kind woman who had cared for her. And what she especially didn't know was that Benjamin Whitmore, one of the most powerful men in the country, had already decided that he would be returning to that little cafe very soon. The afternoon sun began to set, casting the corner comfort caf in a golden glow. Penelope went about her closing routine, but her mind kept drifting back to hazel eyes and a smile that had made her heart skip. She told herself it meant nothing, that she would probably never see Benjamin Whitmore again. She had no idea how wrong she was. The daily visitor, the morning after Dorothy's rescue. Penelope arrived at Corner Comfort Caf earlier than usual. She had barely slept, her mind replaying the events of the previous day. She told herself it was simply the excitement of helping someone in need. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. Benjamin Whitmore's face kept appearing in her thoughts. Along with the electric feeling of their handshake, she was arranging fresh flowers in a vase on the counter when the bell chimed at exactly 9 o'clock. Penelope looked up, expecting to see Jorge, her usual morning supplier, but instead found herself staring directly into the hazel eyes that had haunted her dreams. Benjamin stood in the doorway, looking somehow even more striking in casual clothes than he had in his business suit. He wore dark jeans and a crisp white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. His hair was slightly damp, as if he had just showered, and he carried a bouquet of sunflowers. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm but slightly nervous. "I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to personally thank you again for yesterday. These are for you." Penelope felt her cheeks flush as she accepted the flowers. Sunflowers were her absolute favorite, though she had no idea how he could have known that. "Thank you. But this really wasn't necessary. How is Dorothy doing?" "She's wonderful, thanks to you," Benjamin replied, moving closer to the counter. "In fact, she hasn't stopped talking about you since yesterday. She insisted I come back here to properly express our gratitude. She also mentioned something about the best coffee in Boston." Penelope couldn't help but smile. "Dorothy is very sweet, but I'm not sure I'd make such a bold claim. Would you like to try it yourself and be the judge?" "I'd love to," Benjamin said, settling onto one of the bar stools. "Surprise me with your specialty." As Penelope prepared a cappuccino with extra care, she was acutely aware of Benjamin watching her every movement. Instead of making her uncomfortable, his attention felt appreciative, as if he genuinely found her craft interesting. "You're very skilled at this," Benjamin observed as she created a perfect Rosetta pattern in the foam. "How long have you been a barista?" "About 6 years, but I only opened this cafe 3 years ago," Penelope replied, sliding the cup toward him. "After my parents died, I needed something to pour myself into. They always encouraged me to follow my dreams, and this was mine." Benjamin's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry about your parents. I lost mine when I was 20 in a plane crash. My grandmother raised me after that. She's the only family I have left, which is why yesterday scared me so much." Penelope felt a connection form between them in that moment of shared loss. "Then we understand each other. Dorothy's lucky to have you, just as I was lucky to have my parents for as long as I did." Benjamin took a sip of his cappuccino, and his eyes widened with genuine surprise. "This is incredible." Dorothy wasn't exaggerating at all. The pattern begins that first morning visit turned into a pattern that neither of them planned, but both secretly hoped for. Benjamin returned the next day at 9 o'clock, then the day after that, and the day after that. By the end of the first week, Penelope found herself anticipating his arrival. Making sure she had his favorite pastries fresh from the oven, Benjamin was different from anyone Penelope had ever met. Despite his wealth and power, he listened to her stories about difficult customers and broken espresso machines with genuine interest. He asked thoughtful questions about her dreams for expanding the cafe, about her favorite books, about what made her happy. In turn, he shared stories about growing up with Dorothy, about the pressure of running a massive corporation, about his own fears and doubts.
Ow.
"Don't you have important business meetings to attend?" Penelope asked one morning after Benjamin had been at the cafe for nearly 2 hours. Benjamin smiled, an expression that had become increasingly common in her presence. "I've learned something recently. The most important meetings are the ones where you connect with people who matter, not just people who can increase your profit margins. Besides, I have excellent staff who can handle things while I'm away." By the second week, Benjamin had started bringing his laptop and working from a corner table in the cafe. Penelope noticed how other customers reacted to his presence with curiosity and whispers, clearly recognizing him from business magazines and news articles. But Benjamin seemed oblivious to the attention, his focus always returning to Penelope whenever she passed by his table. Dorothy's blessing on the 15th day of Benjamin's visits. Dorothy herself appeared at the cafe with a bright smile and twinkling eyes. Penelope rushed around the counter to embrace her like an old friend. "Dorothy, what a wonderful surprise. How have you been?" "Much better, thanks to you, dear," Dorothy replied, squeezing Penelope's hands warmly. "But I've come with an ulterior motive today. I'm inviting you to dinner at my home tomorrow evening. I want to properly thank you, and I would love for you to see my garden. Benjamin tells me you love flowers." Penelope glanced at Benjamin, who was watching the exchange with an expression of fond amusement. "He talks about me?" "Oh, my dear, he hardly talks about anything else," Dorothy said with a conspiratorial wink. "Now, say you'll come. I won't take no for an answer." The dinner at Dorothy's elegant brownstone the following evening was magical. Dorothy's garden was even more beautiful than Penelope had imagined, filled with roses, lilies, and the sunflowers that Benjamin had somehow known she loved. Over a home-cooked meal, the three of them laughed and talked like old friends, and Penelope felt a warmth in her heart that she hadn't experienced since losing her own family. After dinner, while Dorothy retired to rest, Benjamin walked Penelope through the garden as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. "I need to tell you something," Benjamin said, stopping beside a fountain and turning to face her. "These past 2 weeks have been the happiest I've had in years. You've reminded me that there's more to life than board meetings and profit reports. Penelope, I'm falling for you." Penelope's heart raced. She had felt the connection growing between them, but hearing him say it out loud made it real and terrifying. "Benjamin, we barely know each other, and our worlds are so different." "Then let's get to know each other better," Benjamin said, taking her hands in his. "And as for our worlds being different, maybe that's exactly what makes this right. You ground me, Penelope. You make me want to be better, not just more successful. Please, give us a chance." Looking into his sincere eyes, Penelope felt her defenses crumbling. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's see where this goes." The opposition rise as their relationship blossomed over the following month. Benjamin continued his morning visits, but now they were punctuated with stolen kisses and held hands. He took her to restaurants she could never afford, but she noticed he seemed just as happy eating her homemade sandwiches in the cafe. They walked through Boston Common, visited art museums, and spent quiet evenings reading together in comfortable silence. But as their relationship became more visible, opposition began to mount. Benjamin's business associates started making pointed comments about his frequent absences from the office. Articles began appearing in society columns, questioning why Benjamin Whitmore was spending so much time at a small cafe instead of attending high society events. The real trouble started when Amanda Pierce re-entered Benjamin's life. His ex-fiancée was everything Penelope was not: tall, sophisticated, impeccably dressed, and connected to all the right families. Amanda had grown up in Benjamin's world of charity galas and country clubs. They had dated for 3 years before breaking up 6 months ago. Amanda had never quite accepted that it was over. Amanda started appearing at places where she knew Benjamin would be, including the cafe. Her visits were always polite on the surface. But Penelope could feel the judgment in every look Amanda gave the modest establishment. "Darling," Amanda purred one afternoon, completely ignoring Penelope's presence. "Your uncle called me yesterday. He's worried about you. Everyone is talking about how you've been neglecting the company." Benjamin's jaw tightened. "My company is doing better than ever, Amanda. And my personal life is no longer your concern." "But it is the concern of your board of directors," Amanda replied smoothly. "They're questioning whether you're still committed to the Whitmore legacy. Dating someone so far outside your social circle raises questions about your judgment." Penelope felt as if she had been slapped. She busied herself wiping down tables, trying to ignore the conversation, but Amanda's words cut deep. After Amanda left, Benjamin tried to comfort Penelope, but she could see the worry in his eyes. "She's trying to get in your head," he said. "Don't let her." But the damage was done. Penelope began noticing the whispers when she accompanied Benjamin to business events. She overheard conversations that stopped abruptly when she entered a room. One evening, at a charity gala Benjamin had insisted she attend, she heard two women in the restroom discussing her. "Can you believe Benjamin Whitmore is dating a waitress? She's pretty enough, I suppose, but she has no breeding, no connections. It won't last. Give it 2 months before he comes to his senses. Men like Benjamin always marry within their class eventually." Penelope left the gala early that night, claiming a headache. Benjamin was concerned, but she insisted she was fine. She wasn't fine. Every insecurity she had ever felt about their relationship was being validated by the world around them. The corporate pressure 2 weeks later. Benjamin received a summons to meet with his uncle, Robert Whitmore, who sat on the board of directors. Benjamin invited Penelope to come with him for moral support. No. But she declined, sensing this was a family matter she shouldn't intrude upon. Robert Whitmore wasted no time getting to the point. "Benjamin, the board is concerned. Your focus has been divided lately. You're spending less time at the office, missing important networking events, and your relationship with this cafe owner is becoming a liability." "Her name is Penelope," Benjamin said coldly, "and my relationship with her is not up for discussion." "Everything is up for discussion when it affects the company," Robert replied. "The Whitmore name carries weight and expectations. Your grandmother may approve of this woman, but she's elderly and sentimental. We need to think practically about the company's image." "My personal life doesn't affect my ability to run the company," Benjamin argued. "Our profits are up 15% this quarter. I've closed 3 major deals in the past month. My work speaks for itself." Robert leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "For now, perhaps. But Benjamin, think long-term. When you marry, your wife will be the face of Whitmore Enterprises alongside you. She'll need to navigate our world, represent our values, understand our culture. Can your cafe owner do that?" The question haunted Benjamin long after he left the meeting. He loved Penelope, truly loved her, but was he being fair to her? Was he asking her to enter a world that would never fully accept her? Would his love be enough to protect her from the constant judgment and scrutiny? Testing the foundation that evening, Benjamin arrived at Penelope's apartment, his usual confidence replaced by visible anxiety. They sat on her worn couch, the one she had bought secondhand when she first moved in, and he told her everything about the meeting with his uncle. Penelope listened in silence, her heart growing heavier with each word. When he finished, she took a deep breath before speaking. "Benjamin, I love you. These past 2 months have been like a dream, but I can't ignore reality anymore. Your family is right about one thing. I don't belong in your world. I don't know which fork to use at fancy dinners. I can't make small talk about yacht clubs and summer homes in the Hamptons. Every time I'm at one of your events, I feel like a fraud." "You're not a fraud," Benjamin said urgently, taking her hands. "You're genuine and real, which is more than I can say for most people in my circle. That's exactly why I love you. But is love enough?" Penelope asked, tears forming in her eyes. "Your uncle asked if I could be the face of Whitmore Enterprises. Honestly, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I want to be. I love my cafe, my simple life, my freedom. If I'm with you, I'll have to give up so much of who I am." Benjamin felt panic rising in his chest. Don't say that. We can find a way to make this work. I'll set boundaries with my family and the board. We'll create our own path. Can you really do that? Penelope challenged gently. Can you truly separate your personal life from your professional obligations? Because from where I'm sitting, they're completely intertwined. And Benjamin, I would never ask you to choose between your legacy and me. They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of their impossible situation pressing down on them. Finally, Benjamin pulled her close, holding her as if she might disappear. I'm not giving up on us, he whispered fiercely. I don't care what my uncle says or what society thinks. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'll fight for us with everything I have. Penelope wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that love could conquer all the obstacles in their path. But as she lay in his arms that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest tests were still to come. The next morning, Benjamin didn't show up at the cafe at 9 o'clock, or at 10, or at 11. Penelope tried not to worry, but by afternoon, when he still hadn't called or texted, her anxiety had turned to dread. What she didn't know was that Benjamin was in an emergency board meeting, facing an ultimatum that would change everything. And what neither of them knew was that Dorothy Whitmore, with her wisdom and cunning, was about to intervene in a way that would force them all to confront what really mattered. The storm was gathering, and their love was about to face its greatest test yet. The ultimatum. Benjamin sat in the imposing conference room at Whitmore Enterprises headquarters, surrounded by 12 board members whose expressions ranged from concern to openly hostile. His uncle Robert stood at the head of the table, presenting what he called a necessary intervention. Benjamin, this meeting has been called because the board unanimously agrees that your recent behavior is jeopardizing the company's reputation and future, Robert announced. We're prepared to make this very simple. End your relationship with Penelope Hayes, or we'll have no choice but to call for a vote of no confidence in your leadership. Benjamin felt his blood run cold. You can't be serious. You're threatening to remove me as CEO because of who I'm dating? We're protecting the company your grandfather built, said Margaret Chen, one of the senior board members. The Whitmore brand is built on tradition, excellence, and social standing. Your relationship with a woman who runs a coffee shop sends the wrong message to our clients and investors. She doesn't run a coffee shop, Benjamin said through gritted teeth. She owns a successful small business that she built from nothing. She's intelligent, hardworking, and kind. Those are the values my grandfather actually cared about. Thomas Gerard, the family attorney, slid a folder across the table. We've prepared an offer for Miss Hayes. $500,000 in exchange for ending the relationship discreetly. It's more than generous. Benjamin stared at the folder as if it contained poison. You tried to buy her off? Not yet, Robert interjected. We wanted to present it to you first, to handle this as a family matter. But Benjamin, understand this. We will do whatever is necessary to protect Whitmore Enterprises. You have until the end of the week to make your decision. Benjamin stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I don't need a week. My answer is no. I love Penelope, and I won't end our relationship because a bunch of people care more about appearances than substance. If you want to remove me as CEO, go ahead and try. But I warn you, I'll fight you every step of the way. He stormed out of the conference room, his mind racing. He needed to talk to Penelope, to warn her about what was coming. But first, he needed to see the one person whose wisdom had never failed him. Dorothy's. Wisdom. Benjamin found his grandmother in her garden, tending to her roses with the same gentle care she had always shown everything in her life. Dorothy looked up as he approached, and her face immediately reflected concern at his troubled expression. Benjamin, my dear, you look like you're carrying the weight of the world. He sank onto the garden bench beside her and told her everything. The board meeting, the ultimatum, the attempted bribery. Dorothy listened without interruption, her weathered hand still working among the roses. When he finished, Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Then she set down her gardening shears and turned to face him fully. Benjamin, do you remember what your grandfather said to me on our wedding day? Benjamin shook his head, confused by the apparent change of subject. Said, Dorothy, People will tell us we're too different, that we come from different worlds. But love is the bridge that connects any two worlds. As long as both people are willing to walk across it. Your grandfather came from wealth, Benjamin. I was a school teacher from a working-class family. His parents threatened to disown him if he married me. Benjamin's eyes widened. I never knew that. He chose me anyway, Dorothy continued, her voice strong and clear, and he never regretted it for a single day. He built Whitmore Enterprises not to create some dynasty of social elitism, but to prove that success comes from hard work, integrity, and surrounding yourself with good people. Somewhere along the way, the board forgot that. They forgot what the Whitmore name is supposed to stand for. What should I do, Grandma? Benjamin asked, feeling like a child seeking guidance. Dorothy took his hand in both of hers. You should fight for love, Benjamin. Always fight for love. Everything else, money, status, social standing, means nothing if you're alone. I've watched you these past months with Penelope, and I've seen you happier than you've been in years. Don't let fear or other people's narrow-mindedness rob you of that happiness. Benjamin hugged his grandmother tightly, feeling a clarity he hadn't experienced since the board meeting. Thank you, Grandma. I needed to hear that. I'll go, Dorothy said, patting his cheek affectionately. Go to your girl and tell her you're choosing love. And Benjamin, if that board tries to remove you, they'll have to go through me first. I still own 30% of the company, and I'll make their lives very difficult. The breaking point, Benjamin rushed to Corner Comfort Caf, his heart pounding with the need to see Penelope, to reassure her, to tell her that he was choosing them no matter what. But when he arrived, he found the cafe closed. Despite it being only 4 in the afternoon, worried, he called Penelope's cell phone. It rang 6 times before she answered, her voice thick, as if she had been crying. Penelope, where are you? Are you okay? I'm at home, Benjamin. I can't do this right now. Can't do what? Talk to me, please. What happened? There was a long pause before she spoke again. Amanda came by the cafe today. She told me about the board meeting, about the ultimatum. She said you were probably at home right now, deciding how much money would make me go away quietly. What? Penelope, no. I walked out of that meeting. I told them I wouldn't end our relationship, that they could try to remove me if they wanted to. I was coming to tell you that I'm choosing you, choosing us. But that's the problem, Benjamin, Penelope said, her voice breaking. You shouldn't have to choose. You shouldn't have to risk everything you've built, your family's legacy, your career, all because you're in love with someone your world doesn't approve of. It's not fair to you. None of that matters without you, Benjamin insisted. Penelope, please, let me come over. We need to talk about this face to face. I need time to think, Penelope replied. I need to figure out if I'm strong enough for this, if I can handle being the reason you lose everything that matters to you. You're what matters to me. Benjamin's voice rose with desperation. Can't you see that? I'll call you tomorrow, Penelope said softly. I'm sorry, Benjamin. I'm so sorry. The line went dead, leaving Benjamin staring at his phone in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. He couldn't lose her, not when he had just found her. Dorothy's emergency the next morning. Benjamin woke to find 17 missed calls from Penelope. His heart leaped with hope as he immediately called her back. Benjamin, Penelope's voice was frantic. It's Dorothy. The hospital called me because I was listed as an emergency contact. She collapsed this morning. I'm on my way there now. All thoughts of their relationship crisis vanished as terror gripped Benjamin's chest. I'm on my way. Text me which hospital. He arrived at Boston General Hospital 20 minutes later to find Penelope in the waiting room, pacing back and forth with anxiety written all over her face. When she saw him, she ran to him, and he caught her in his arms. What did the doctors say? He asked urgently. They're running tests. Her heart is weak, Benjamin. They said the stress of everything might have triggered this episode. A wave crashed over Benjamin like a wave. This is my fault. The stress of my situation with the board, with us, it was too much for her. No, Penelope said firmly, gripping his arms. Don't you dare blame yourself. Dorothy wouldn't want that. They sat together in the waiting room for 3 agonizing hours, before a doctor finally came out to speak with them. Dorothy is stable, but she needs to reduce stress significantly. She's asking to see both of you. Benjamin and Penelope entered Dorothy's room together to find the elderly woman looking fragile but alert in the hospital bed. Despite her condition, she smiled when she saw them. "They are my two favorite people," Dorothy said, her voice weak but warm. "Come here, both of you." They approached the bed, Benjamin taking one of Dorothy's hands while Penelope took the other. "I'm going to be fine," Dorothy assured them. "The doctors say I just need rest and less excitement. But lying here thinking I might not make it made me realize I need to say something important." "Grandma." "Don't talk like that," Benjamin protested.
"Hush and listen,"
Dorothy commanded with a flash of her usual spirit. "Life is too short to let fear or other people's opinions dictate your happiness. Benjamin, I watched you build walls around your heart after your parents died, focusing only on work and duty. Then Penelope came into your life, and those walls started coming down. Penelope, I watched you care for a stranger as if she were family, showing a kindness that this world desperately needs. You two found each other, and that's a gift." "But the board," Benjamin started to say. "The board can go hang themselves," Dorothy said bluntly, making Penelope gasp and then laugh despite the tension. "I meant what I said, Benjamin. I own 30% of that company, and I'll use every bit of influence I have to protect you. But more importantly, I want you to know that choosing love over money or status is never the wrong choice. I did it 60 years ago, and I got a lifetime of happiness with your grandfather. That's what I want for you." Tears streamed down Benjamin's face as he listened to his grandmother. "I love her so much, Grandma. I can't lose either of you." "You won't lose me," Dorothy promised. "I plan to be around for your wedding." Speaking of which, she looked at Penelope with meaningful intensity. "This young man loves you with all his heart. Are you brave enough to love him back, despite what it might cost?" Penelope looked at Benjamin, really looked at him, and saw not the powerful businessman or the heir to a fortune, but the man who visited her cafe every morning just to see her smile. The man who listened to her dreams as if they mattered as much as any corporate merger. The man who was willing to risk everything for her. "Yes," Penelope whispered. "I'm brave enough. Because he's worth it. We're worth it. Stand after." Dorothy fell asleep. Benjamin and Penelope stepped out into the hospital hallway. Benjamin pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "I was so scared I'd lost you," he murmured. "I was scared too," Penelope admitted. "Scared of not being enough? Scared of ruining your life? But watching Dorothy in that hospital bed made me realize that hiding from love because we're afraid is the real tragedy. I don't want to live with that regret." "Neither do I," Benjamin said. He pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. "Penelope Hayes, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I don't care what the board says or what society thinks. You are my choice today and every day." "I love you too," Penelope replied, standing on her toes to kiss him softly. "And we'll face whatever comes together." The next day, Benjamin called an emergency board meeting. This time he came prepared not just with passion, but with a strategy. He had spent the entire night working with Thomas Gerard, who, despite being the family attorney, had been moved by Dorothy's stand and had agreed to help Benjamin. Benjamin entered the conference room with Thomas at his side and took his position at the head of the table. The board members looked surprised to see him there so confidently after their ultimatum. "I've called this meeting to address the concerns raised in our last session," Benjamin began. "But before I do, I want to share some facts. Since I became CEO 3 years ago, Whitmore Enterprises has seen a 45% increase in revenue. We've expanded into 12 new markets. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Our brand value has increased significantly. These are not the results of a man who is distracted or losing focus." Robert Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. "Benjamin, no one is questioning your business acumen. We're questioning your judgment in personal matters that affect the company's image." "Then let me address that," Benjamin continued. "The Whitmore brand was built by my grandfather, a man who married outside his social class and faced similar criticism from the board of his time. He proved that true leadership isn't about conforming to outdated social expectations, but about integrity, innovation, and treating people with respect. Those are the values he instilled in me, and those are the values I see in Penelope Hayes. He clicked a remote, and a presentation appeared on the screen behind him. These are metrics from the past 2 months showing increased positive media coverage of Whitmore Enterprises. Articles highlighting our community involvement, support of small businesses, and our commitment to genuine values rather than superficial appearances. This positive coverage correlates directly with my relationship with Penelope becoming public knowledge. The public sees authenticity, not scandal. Margaret Chen frowned as she reviewed the data. These numbers are impressive, but nothing, Benjamin interrupted firmly. I've also spoken with our major investors. Thomas has documentation showing that not one of them has expressed concern about my personal life. In fact, several have commented positively on my relationship with Penelope, noting that it humanizes our brand and makes Whitmore Enterprises more relatable to everyday consumers.